So today we are thinking about fasting. We come to that point in the Sermon on the Mount. Now, fasting is probably not something that many of us will have much experience of. Now, you may know, for example, that Muslims in the month of Ramadan, they have fasting. That is a fasting month from I think it's from sunrise to sunset. And I think even if you're being strict, it means not even drinking water during that time. You mustn't eat or drink anything during that time. And that is pretty extreme, you might think. And I know it's difficult for Muslims in this country in the summer months, if Ramadan falls in one of the summer months when there are long days, really, really hard. I think for many people, that is perhaps the only real experience of fasting that they have. What is fasting? Why do people do it? Why does Jesus talk about it here? Why is it part of the Sermon on the Mount? Well, let's think a bit about what Jesus said, and then we'll think a little bit about what fasting is and why we might want to do it after that. So this is what Jesus says. This is Matthew chapter 6, verses 16 to 18, just a short passage this morning. And he says, "When you fast, do not look sombre as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Now, you remember that in the last couple of videos we've thought about giving to the needy, we've thought about prayer, and in both of those cases, along with fasting, these were things which were done as kind of part of religious devotion. But what was happening was they were being done by the Pharisees, not because they were really devoted to God and wanted to love him and serve other people, but because they wanted other people to see how good they were. Now, it was a kind of a show done for others, and that's why Jesus is so critical of them. And that's why he says again what he does here. When you fast, do not look sombre as the hypocrites do, and they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. It's quite hard, I think, if you're fasting to show that to others. Of course, if you're not eating anything, then someone might not necessarily know that. So they made absolutely sure that other people knew that, and they disfigured their faces. They kind of, made a big show and dance about all of this. And we know from another part of the Gospels that they used to fast twice a week. It was sort of a regular thing for them. And really, I think what Jesus is criticising in this, as well as in prayer and giving to the needy, is just a pattern of a religious life which looks like it's devoted to God. They look really pious, they look really devoted, but actually their hearts are not in the right place at all. They're the people who really like others to think that they're devoted to God. They kind of like the respect of other people. They like the power and control that they had because they were sort of seen as religious leaders in some cases. So they liked all of that, but they didn't really love God and they didn't really love other people. And so the fasting that they did was just for show, as well as the prayer, as well as the giving to the needy. It was just a big show. That's why Jesus says, so when you fast, you put oil on your head, wash your face, just basically make yourself presentable. Don't make a big song and dance about fasting. And then it won't be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, and he who sees what is done in secret will reward you. So, fasting is something between you and God, just as prayer is something between you and God, and just as giving to the needy as well is something between you, God, and I guess the people that you're giving to. It's not about other people seeing you and seeing how good you are, but it's about doing the right thing. It's about loving God, and it's about loving other people, not being done for the sake of others saying how good you are, but just done because it's a good thing in itself and you want to do it. And out of love for God, out of love for others, you do these good things. Now, fasting, there is one aspect of fasting, I think, which has kind of made its way into our culture, and that is giving up something for Lent. Now, that's something which people sometimes still do. In fact, it's still done even by people who are not Christian. It's still kind of done sometimes. I remember when I was at school, sometimes people would ask, "Oh, are you giving up something for Lent? I'm doing this or that or the other." Giving up chocolate is quite a common one. And really it's a way of, I think a lot of people see it as a way of kind of just disciplining themselves to give something up. I think it's interesting, based on what Jesus said here, actually, that many people, when they give up something for Lent, announce it to everyone on, now that we have social media, or even before that, they would tell others and say, "Oh, I'm giving up chocolate for Lent," and make a big thing about it. Whereas actually, I think, what Jesus said here, I would say, if you're going to give something up for Lent, don't tell anyone else about it, apart from the people who you need to tell. Just give it up quietly. No need to broadcast the fact. And the idea about fasting, a big idea behind it, is that it is a physical prayer. It's kind of expressing our dependence on God in a way which is kind of physical, saying even food, Jesus said, man does not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And that's the thing, that it's about saying we depend on God more than we depend on food. God provides everything that we have, our food and our water, and that we fast. Sometimes fasting is appropriate in times of penitence, when we're sorry, when we have done something wrong, or we want to turn back to God. Fasting was often used in the Old Testament in those circumstances. And I think often it's accompanies special times when we need to cry out to God for something in particular. And in my own life, that has been, I don't fast on a regular basis, but there have been on odd occasions times when I felt it necessary in order to pray, just to fast, in order to, it's that again, just that physical way of expressing our prayers. Not to say that we're trying to twist God's arm, but I think sometimes it is appropriate. So what was the difference between the way that we must fast and the way that the Pharisees were fasting is that it really is about the relationship that we have with God, and not about the show of fasting. But with all of these things, they are things which we don't do for the benefit of other people as such. We don't do for our own benefit, but we do them because we love God, and we want to share that love as well. So that's why we give to the needy, not because we want to be seen to be good people, but because God has given us so much, and we love Him, we want to share with others, and because out of love we give, and not to be seen. We pray not to have our reward from other people, not because we want other people to think we're pious and good people, but because we want to pray to the God who made us and who loves us, and we want to talk to Him and have that relationship with Him. And we fast because we want again to express that relationship with God. And what Jesus says here, just finish with this really, that sometimes people wonder, when is it appropriate to fast? How often should we fast? Should we do it on a regular basis? Should we not? I would say that I don't think there's necessarily a rule for that. I think that the thing is, as I've said before, it often accompanies perhaps a particular thing to pray for. I don't think there's a rule about how often or not how often. For me, it tends to be not very often. I think the thing is, it's not a kind of a thing which is just there to be done. I fast because it's just there. But rather, I would say it's that vital relationship with God which leads to how we use our bodies, how we use our food, and how we kind of depend on Him. So I would say it's let God lead, and there will perhaps be times when it is appropriate to fast, other times when it's not appropriate. So I would say it's for me, not a regular thing, but something which is perhaps appropriate on an occasional basis. But I don't think there is any particular wisdom on this. I don't think Jesus is specifying any particular time frame. It's just whenever you may fast. Don't do it in order to be seen by others, but do it for the benefit of that kind of out of love for God and expressing our desire and our need for Him. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Please do click on the like button down below if you like the video, and please do click on subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I'm currently working through the Sermon on the Mount, also through something called a catechism, and please do jump onto my channel, have a look at that if you want to explore, and there are a few other things as well you might be interested in. So thank you very much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. My name is Phil, and I hope to see you again for another video very soon. God bless.